let's talk about Redfall, because I managed to play some of the game early. Now, I don't always do preview events and types of things like this. If you've been watching the channel for a while, you know I usually kind of tend to just go for previews for games I have big questions for. Every once in a while, yeah, like if it's just a big new exciting game, I'd love to tell you about it. But for the most part, I only do previews for stuff I'm really curious about. I can't tell what the deal is with it. I did that for Gotham Knights. That turned out how that turned out. And with Redfall, I decided to check it out when Bethesda invited me, specifically because I wasn't really sure about this game. I didn't really have too much to say about it. It just kind of looked like a co-op shooter thing that didn't seem like it had a lot of Arcane, the developer's identity behind it. So I went in with an open mind, but not really thinking too much of it. And I came out with some things to say. Now, again, I don't want to like call it early. That's one thing I don't like doing with previews. You can't play a game for, in this case, I played for 90 minutes and just immediately say, great game or bad game. I have some thoughts and feelings where it might land, and I'll get to that. But really what I want to do here is just kind of provide some info, provide some, answer some questions, and just how I feel. So long spiel over. Yes, I got to play for 90 minutes, and the deal was here is that it was single player. I got to play single player. Now, from the trailers and everything you've seen, Redfall just looks like a co-op-y online open world shooter. But I played totally alone, and that's actually pretty good because I tend to play any type of cooperative game usually alone. It's just how I play. Don't have a lot of friends that I play cooperatively with, and with Redfall, you choose from 4 characters, and I chose Devinder Crossley, who is a British man who is kind of like an online, like YouTube documentary conspiracy theory guy about ghosts, aliens, vampires, science anomalies, stuff like that, and now he's jumping into this Massachusetts town because it's ridden with vampires, and he's been proven right. So that sounded like a cool character. And in that 90 minutes, like I didn't play at the beginning of the game, I played into the game, and I was able to kind of get a good sampling of things. I was able to kind of freely explore, run around a lot of the map. I was able to do a main mission. I stumbled upon some side activities, and it's a lot more fun than I expected, but there might still be something missing. I'm not sure. Maybe it's because I played it single player, but here's how it kind of breaks down. The loop is, you explore this world. Arcane has said it's kind of their spin on a Far Cry game, which I don't totally feel that, but that's fine. I didn't want them to really make a Far Cry game. This is still just like an open world shooter, and there are open world things to keep you busy in the map. But what I liked is that Redfall feels like a cool actual little town. It's like a Massachusetts coastal town that has been taken over by not only vampires, but also these cultists that worship the vampires. And what it does really have going for it, and I think the most like arcane-y thing about it, is that it's just got a good solid sense of place. Everything is not hyper realistic. Everything's got this cool little bit of quirky, almost animated style to it. Just the vibes are there. There's just lots of cool little nuggets and interesting things on walls, on streets. Like every area felt kind of unique. And from what I at least got to see, it doesn't seem like this big, giant, massive, overwhelming map designed to keep you playing forever and ever, like because it is just a town. Like it's a small Massachusetts town. So it seems to kind of be aware of that, but there's enough to really run around and do. And what I liked is that like you kind of always see threats. You'll see vampires just kind of eerily hovering over like a main street, or you'll see these other kind of like watcher vampires perched up on a rooftop scanning the horizon, or you see him just kind of roaming in through the woods. Like I like that stuff. It's not a scary game by any means, but it's got little eerie bits of imagery here and there. And that translates over to the interiors. The interior stuff and like some of the more linear mission stuff, and the vampire nest was like the coolest, most arcane-y shit. You see some wild stuff, some cool details, some little story nuggets, and just some otherworldly trippy stuff that I think Arcane does a really good job with. But what you're actually doing is mostly running and gunning. Now you can play stealth, which is pretty cool. There's another character called Jacob that's actually like this kind of like badass commando, like vampire hybrid. He has like a vampire eye for some reason in the story. He seems like he could be played a little bit more stealth. I was actually watching the guy next to me use his special abilities, and they seem sweet. But again, I played as Devinder, who is kind of like a Ghostbusters tech guy. They're all cooldown abilities, and he's got one that's like a throwable transport thing. So I guess you could say it's like Blink, but not really. It's got a limited throw range, and you throw this device, and where it lands, you can then teleport to that device. It seems like you can can also do that with enemies, which lets you kind of like futz around and do some experimental stuff. But that worked all right, at least for getting up to some rooftops and stuff. It is pretty limited to where I wanted to go, but he also has this cool like electric spear throw that will hurt vampires, as well as a big ult, which means he places down this big electrical UV thing that will stun the vampires even more. So now the vampire loop essentially is they actually have to be like killed, like vampire style. And so they can't just be riddled with bullets and then they're dead. You actually have to kill them with the elemental stuff. Like you have to either burn them or like I think electricity does it, but you can also use UV light to then turn them into stone, and then you can whack that stone, and if they're a normal level vampire, they'll shatter into a million pieces, or if a higher level vampire, you have to do it a couple times. But the big thing is staking them. So certain weapons you have to check in your inventory, but certain weapons will have a stake mounted on the end, like a bayonet, and then that allows you to just essentially shoot a vampire a bunch, like with regular guns, to weaken them, and then they're like, and then you walk up to them and you do the bayonet stab, and it always has a really, really cool finisher animation. Like I was really blown away by them, I'm not gonna lie. So it's pretty cool that there's like a special way that you have to kill them, but it's not like ultra limiting. It's still always pretty straightforward. You have a gun or an ability that will help you out with that. So like you're not like stuck with only having to do one specific thing for them. They're just not as easily killable as the human enemies, which you can just, you know, destroy. Now it's cool because a lot of times you'll face off against like a vampire, but then a bunch of cultists surrounding the vampire, and the AI for the human characters is really not very good. I know that's like an arcane thing now, and at first I thought it was kind of charming in Deathloop because it let you just kind of do whatever you wanted and experiment, but at this point I was hoping for some killers, and they seem pretty easy to manipulate. Now the stealth isn't super intense, right? It's not like a full stealth system, but you're able to crouch around, creep around, and a lot of the weapons have silencers, so you're able to do a good amount of sneaking. The one character has a cloak, like there's some good stuff there. But the best thing I will say is that the guns feel really good. All the guns are really cool. Like the shooting is really solid. You know, for someone who really, they specialized in the Dishonored games, which weren't just full first person shooters. And then, yeah, Deathloop had some good weapons, but here it feels like they really took all that knowledge together. But there's something a little missing here. Maybe it's like I needed to play with more challenge, or maybe it's because I was playing single player, because like I felt my character's abilities were pretty dull. Nothing super exciting. I could see where getting up on a rooftop with my transport thing could help, or even transporting an enemy to another character's special ability. So as much as you can play it single player, and Arcane is very confident that you can play it as single player, I still kind of felt like there was something missing, and it would have been better if I was playing with one of the other characters and kind of using those abilities together to really let you do the Arcane shit. Essentially, like your character, like your ability suite, like you're a little bit of Cult, or like you're a little bit of Corvo. You don't have a full suite of abilities, so it makes sense to play together so you guys can use your abilities together and do cool Dishonored shit, right? So I didn't really get too much of that here. I felt crafty here and there, using the environment to my advantage, but that was really it. I think a big part of that was that maybe I feel like I needed a little bit more traversal abilities, because my teleporter thing was only so good, and some of the characters don't even have an ability like that, so you need other teammates to get you around. The girl Layla has that like elevator jump thing that would really help, especially considering like when you're in the streets, like which I like all the buildings, like the elevation and stuff, like you want to get up there and nail vampires. So I don't know, like maybe things are just wilder, more interesting with other players, because for me, like going around in the maps and in the map and stuff, like some parts just felt kind of dull, and I was just like walking from place to place. There were encounters and stuff like that, but I felt a lot of that would have been a little more engaging with someone else. And I say that as someone who doesn't really play a lot of co-op. The progression stuff seems all right. You level up and you spend points in a skill tree, and you're able to kind of dump points and ability points into strengthening your specific special abilities and little extra bonuses like how you heal or how you gather components and stuff like that. I scanned around on the skill tree, and like there wasn't a ton with my character that really seemed too exciting, like stuff I really wanted to work for, but you know, it's too early to tell with that. Maybe the other characters have cooler shit. And then the weapon stuff, I wish there was more customization to them. It's more just getting weapons that have special abilities and like a rarity level to them. It seems super looter shooter, but it's not like over the top, like in your face. It's not like an annoying with like a bunch of stats. It's pretty straightforward, but I just wish there was a little bit more customization to them, because again, the guns pack a punch. They are pretty cool. It is fun to shoot. It is fun to smoke some headshots and stuff like that. Especially because like I like the vampires. All the vampires are really creative and weird, and like the more powerful ones have their own names, and they can occupy certain interiors, and you just stumble upon them, or you do a side mission. And I really like that stuff. I had to play with a controller here, but I wish I was playing with a keyboard and mouse because like the vampires are so zigzaggy that I wish I had that level of control. Like that stuff might be able to be pretty challenging. Otherwise, like I said, I do want to keep this kind of short because I don't want to like declare the game good or bad because there is so much to see. In 90 minutes playing as one character, I got to see some stuff and I had some fun. I don't yet know if like this game is for me. All my questions aren't answered because like I said, there's still something missing. Again, I don't know if it's because I played solo or single player, or maybe there's something else introduced to the gameplay loop that I haven't seen yet, or maybe the cooler shit is just later on. It also tells a story in kind of more unconventional ways, but there's some interesting stuff there considering these vampires are more like creations of science than anything, but they're still creepy and cult. I don't know. There's a lot, and I just wanted to give you these kind of first impressions because when these previews work, it's also like I'm not playing the final version of the game. There are always going to be issues and stuff like that. But yeah, not making any excuses for them. I still don't know how this game is really going to land, but you know, I had some stuff, I had some fun, so that's where I'm at now. Let me know in the comments if you have other questions. I pretty much covered everything, I think, but if you have any questions, let me know. I'll answer what I can. I'm just hanging out here, yapping at the camera, talking about stuff that interests me or just stuff I love. So if you like what I'm trying to do here, clicking the like button helps me. Thank you. You probably know that by now. That's it. I'm Jake Baldino. See you guys next time. Pizza's on me. Subscribe because video games.